Okay. Well, thank you so much. Thank you to the organizers. Shall I just begin? I assume so. And I'm a senior director of engineering at Mercari US, and thank you to the organizers for inviting me to speak how we actually change the way we do automated web testing inside a large organization. Before I begin, I want to remind everyone that we are in a very dangerous situation, and we are way on a path to pretty bad climate. And I'm an optimist, so I think survival is possible, but only if you change your life, join an organization, and there's an organization in every country, every city that fights for the planet. Okay, we're hiring as always, but I had a long career. I've done everything from computer vision to data visualization, Node, JavaScript, and so on. So right now I work at Mercari US, and Mercari US is online marketplace, right? You go, you search, you find something, and you buy it from someone else. It's almost like eBay, but very well done. The woman in the background actually is taking a picture of an item she tries to sell, and that's what we're trying to test. So in this presentation, I'll tell about our large company, the current testing situation, how we picked the different testing tool, how we convinced each team to help us test better, and the current progress. So my career kind of started from a small company. We went from 75 people to 20, and that was good because I automated everything. So that was a success. Then I worked at a large company, back to a startup, then another startup, and now I'm at Mercari, which is 300 people, but it's a subsidiary of a large Japanese company with 2,000 people, and we work closely with them. The common thing is the same chief technical officer. We had such a good run that 13 years later, he came back and invited me to join him. And he said, Gleb, I just need our stuff to work, right? We have to make sure the web application is working, React native app is working, all the APIs, all the special services and microservices, but they work all the time. And for a long time, I was on the other side of a fence, so to speak. I used to work at Cypress.io, which is a test runner. So I would make the testing tools. And now for the last, 7 months, I'm heavily using them, and I'm observing what QAs and the testers and developers used to tell me when I worked at Cypress.io. So if you want to change the testing situation at your company, first you have to kind of do reconnaissance. You have to find out the current state of things. That means when I arrived at the new company, I had to meet a lot of people to understand their approach to testing. And there are lots of different departments, everyone from VPs and chief officers to the QA team to the dev team. Everyone has their own perspective on what the company needs. You have to understand it so you can approach each team and get their buy-in into different types of testing. So when I joined the company, here were the things stood. They use Selenium WebDriver and Mabel. Every night you'd get an email where it says pretty much all the tests failed, right? You get a list of tests, right? You kind of ignore it because there's so many tests failed. It's hard to understand the reason why each test failed. You're trying to debug a Mabel test, and it gives you, hey, I was trying to find an element, could not find it. And you're like, well, I guess it wasn't there. I don't know why. Trying to debug a failing Selenium WebDriver test, you get a stack at best, right, that tells you the problem. But it was pretty much impossible to maintain or understand the root cause of each failing test. And I think this is a very common story. So web team only writes unit tests, right, because they can run them fast and locally. While API services that the web team is using, they have their own, testing approach, probably unit tests, some integration tests. And then the web team is using all these microservices, and it's a very complex system of services, right? But the QA team pretty much all manual testing because the test automation attempts failed. And overall, you have very low confidence in what you're releasing. So you do all this manual test bashing where you try to put as many bodies on the web application before you release anything. On the other hand, the tech stack was very, very nice, right? We have like React with Next, GraphQL. Everything is brand cutting edge, right? We use very good CIs, so no, technical debt there. We do use preview environments for every pull request, so that's a huge advantage because you can fully test everything in isolation. And I think we had global alignment, so everyone kind of wanted better testing, which actually makes your job as someone who comes in with ideas about testing much easier. So the management really cares about, what can better testing give us like right now, and what do you need, right? So you have to show them the benefits of better end-to-end tests. So the way I've done it, I would look at what the web team was releasing, and I would write demo tests, using Cypress.io, the test run, and showing, hey, there was this issue, right, that we found manually, or someone found in production. Here's a test for it. So if we run this test forever, we'll catch that issue, right? And we concentrated on end-to-end because that's where the users actually found issues in production. That's very important to run end-to-end tests because they really approximate the user experience. We still write all the unit tests as before, so there's no kind of removing that. But the end-to-end tests, we find the logical errors, browser errors, stylistic errors, everything in the database, backend microservices, and DNS. So to me, this kind of benefits of end-to-end tests really speak to, the trade-offs between the effort you put into writing a test and maintaining it, and the confidence you gain from running the test successfully. So you want to be in a green zone, but we were in a red zone. And I think this is very common where people start with tests that require a lot of effort to maintain and run, and yet provide very little confidence. And we're like, okay, we're going to go from there eventually to automating everything and covering more features with automated tests. But before we could do that, we had to pick the right end-to-end testing tool. There are lots of tools, but let's discuss how you pick a tool. To me, it always goes to the effort and the feature set of the tool, right? Those two things, that's all that matters. Not the speed of running, but the effort it takes to install the tool, write tests, run tests on CI or locally, debug a failing test, and maintain the testing suite. So if you have good documentation, right, as a tool, if you have training available, if developers and QAs have previous experience with the tool, then installation and writing tests is easy, right? It requires a lot less effort. Running tests, how long it takes to run on CI, well, that depends on CI setup. People discuss to great length, oh, this tool takes 8 seconds, this tool takes 2 seconds to run. And to me, this is like such a pointless discussion. I can run all the end-to-end tests in less than 5 minutes just because the CI setup allows for parallelizing all the tests. That's it, right? Very low effort. The main, I think, advantage of a better testing tool is how much effort it requires to debug a failing test and how much effort it requires to update the test when you maintain them, when you change the feature and you have to update the test as well. That's where the test runner shines. So if you had no tests, right, at first, everything is very simple, right? But quickly, the maintenance skyrockets because there's a lot of effort to understand the bugs users find in production. If you have just manual tests, it takes a lot of time to run them. If everything breaks, you have to manually kind of remember how it's supposed to work. If you start writing unit tests, well, it depends what you use. Some tools are better at maintenance than others because they test the interface, not implementation. The snapshots, for example, in Jest, the maintenance is a little bit tricky, right? So you usually just approve them. Visual snapshot, if you set it up, right? It takes a little bit longer to run them, but the maintenance is easier because you understand what happens on the page. For me, the Cypress, because I know it so well, it probably requires, less time to debug and less time in maintenance, but because you run end-to-end tests, running them takes longer than unit tests, for example. So I did my best to set up the best system for the company so that everyone can write and maintain tests. The previous Selenium WebDriver really required a lot of maintenance, especially debugging a failing test. No-code approaches that Mercari used before with Mabel, right? It was very easy. You didn't have to install anything. You just record yourself using the app, but the maintenance became a nightmare because every time you change a feature, you had to re-record end-to-end tests because it's no-code solution. Okay, so inside a large organization, after talking to everyone, we decided if you're part of a development team and you work on feature X, you would write end-to-end tests for that feature. And the QA team would actually automate all current manual tests and all the failing automated tests from our test runners. One particular challenge that I have is the time zones. I'm in Boston on the East Coast of the United States. Half of the company is in Japan. It's plus 13 hours time zone difference. That requires a lot of asynchronous communication, a lot of communication through Jira and for Slack, and expecting the answer the next day. The web team was very skeptical, I would say at first, right? For them, any kind of new tool that you bring, anytime you require them to write things, it slows them down, right? They think it's more effort but required for them, slows the feature delivery. And you have to convince them that writing end-to-end tests actually will help them because the automated tests can cover all their bases. So they don't have to think, oh, did I break accidentally? Let me check it out first before I release it. If you've never seen a Cypress test, right, it's pretty explanatory. It tells you, here's how the app works, right? Here's how you log in, buy an item, create an item, deliver all the things that require manual testing, like in this case, communication between the seller and the buyer. They all can be tested automatically, right? But another big thing is to make sure that the tests are understandable, right? If you're on a web team, you don't want to think about how to use Cypress. You already are worried about how to deliver a feature. So for you, being able to understand the test, write and update it when you work on a feature is very, very important. We use a lot of custom commands, right, to make sure that the tests are readable, right? A login user visit, get element by test IDs, create listing. All the pieces of a test logic, right, are all abstracted. In fact, when you open a pull request with more tests, the first checkbox is asking you, are the tests readable? Because the whole team will look at them and will have to understand the test. And readability of a test, I think, is the most important feature. Not how long it runs, not even if it covers all the edge cases, but can someone understand and maintain the test going forward? I did do a lot of adjustments for the current team to make sure the transition to Cypress is smooth. For example, we keep our end-to-end test in a separate repo, which I usually recommend against. But in this case, to make sure the transition happens, we actually did allow for it and we updated all the things. We run just the change specs because it's a large application. Running all end-to-end tests takes, time. You don't want to be bogged down. You want to get immediate feedback. Did I break something? Is my feature working or not? And we do share results from end-to-end test runs. We don't want to just QA team to know the results. We want to make sure that everyone sees, okay, this feature is working. This is the result of a pull request. Here are the tests and so on. So we did some sign up for Cypress dashboard because it's a communication tool where you see the test results. Once you have the dashboard, we install GitHub integration app so that every pull request gets a comment from Cypress dashboard saying, hey, this pull request, here's the stats for the test, here's the tests that failed, do you want to investigate it? Here's the link, here's a screenshot. You immediately get the status for that new or changed test. Now, the second team that you have to talk to and make sure they trust you is the QA team, right? Because every time you say, I'm going to change the QA practices, I'm going to bring automation. The QA team, if majority of their tasks were manual, they hear, I'm going to be fired, right? Because you're trying to automate their job. And instead you say, no, we're going to make you 10 times more productive so you don't run the same stupid click on a button test to make sure it works. So we're trying to make sure that everyone on the QA team can acquire automation skills, right? So that includes demos of a tool, all the information, how to run tests, how to investigate tests, videos, workshops that someone can use are all documented very, very well internally. I support everyone who has questions about the tool specifically. That means dedicated support channel, lots of examples that I link with the test, with docs. We did a lot of practice tests, and we did a lot of, hey, if you have a question, right? If you don't know how to do something, if you don't know how to investigate a test or write a test, here are my office hours, right? Every day you can join me and we'll just look at the test, so you can observe me writing a test, anytime you want. So, and another thing that helped a lot was explicitly kind of listing, these are all the tests that you need in order to write tests. There are a lot, but everything is linked. So if you're a QA who tries to maybe go from basic knowledge of automation to knowing everything you need to know to work at Mercari as a QA, here are all the resources. They're not hidden, they're documented publicly. So today we have on the team that supports the web about maybe 10 QAs, right? Majority are right now tied to React Native project. So only I would say 2.5, maybe 3 QAs are porting the tests to Cypress full time. But I have to admit, it's been tough, right? It's not like you can say, okay, here's my QA team, and boom, everyone now knows automation. Everyone can successfully write complicated Cypress tests. So sometimes you would have to augment or extend your QA group by hiring someone with previous Cypress experience. And we call this group automation QA group, right? It's a specific team. Right now, it's me plus another person that I hired. This picture is not very accurate. As you can see, I look slightly younger. But the purpose of that group is to make sure that everyone is successful in the organization, right? The way we do that, aside from writing the tests ourselves, is by becoming a writer. Literally, if you're trying to spread different technology, right, inside the organization, you have to describe how it solves specific problems and then make sure that everyone can find those solutions, right? I don't want everyone, especially across the time zones, to come to me and say, wait a minute, how do I run my test on Circle CI? No, you have to describe it somewhere where people can find it. So these are blog posts I've written in the last 6 months that specifically address the problems my organization had or still has, right? Public blog posts because I need to show how to solve the problems. I have to be a prolific writer, right? Not only I'm writing blog posts, I'm writing internal docs, right? I'm updating the README, the tests, right? I'm running like advent calendar with tips and tricks. And I'm even recording videos, some of them public, some of them private to Mercari. And I figure out that sometimes it takes a lot of effort to document things through blog posts, through documentation. But sometimes just recording a 5-minute video explains the concept and especially the technique for debugging a test or writing a test or looking at the running test in the browser much better than trying to describe it in words. What I'm trying to avoid is a situation common in many large organizations that evolved over the years, where if someone has a question, how do I write a test or how do I solve this specific problem, what they have to do look at the README files, if there are any README files, then find another piece of information from some internal company wiki. And we know the wikis are not maintained, right? Because it's internal wiki where a person who started the page, never updated it, left the company, and now the page is out of date, and you have no idea if it's actually accurate. And then in addition to that, if you need an answer, you probably have to search Slack or some other chat tool to find other pieces of a puzzle. I don't want to do that. I want everyone who has a question about test automation to find the complete example, complete video, complete blog post right there and then and just apply it. Okay, so I talked about web team, QA team. There is a big part that's important in a large organization is DevOps, right? Can you run your tests on a pull request successfully? As you can see right now, I'm running all the tests here and on 2 machines, so they run in parallel, right? But many of them are failing because the internal dev environment is flaky. Now, in my opinion, end-to-end tests can be as fast, right, as possible. They can take, whatever the longest running test takes. So you have to figure out why the dev platform has network problems or whatever problems, and make sure the tests are green. You have to hunt the flaky tests down and solve them, because every failed test counts. And the web team will not look at failing tests if they can flake for whatever platform reason. Okay, the dashboard in Cypress has flaky test detection where you can drill down into each flaky test and see when it fails, trace down the API at that particular timestamp, and figure out if you need to bump the resources or do something else. Okay, the API services that the page uses is actually very important, because when you use the website, you only see the top of the iceberg. In reality, that web page uses the GraphQL, which use API services that actually come in, and they all have to work for you to actually see the page, to be able to list an item, buy an item, right? You are only testing the web application, but you actually will discover problems with each part of the microservice backend. And this is still a work in progress. Right now, we only run our web tests, right, when there is a pull request or when the application is deployed. But what we really want to do is to run all our end-to-end tests when there are new API changes, right? When services that those APIs use, but when they change or get deployed. We use feature flags a lot, and it's very important to me to run the test when there are new values of feature flags, right? Because they can affect the user experience and suddenly break you. When there are database changes, you want to run end-to-end tests, because again, ultimately end-to-end tests allow you to find problems in all those areas. So after 6 months, here's what we have achieved. We are writing a lot of tests, right? With a full end-to-end test right now, we are around like 250 end-to-end tests. And the way we decided which tests to write, we had a strategy. We went for wide coverage, at least, a few tests for selling a specific item, for finding chat, all the things. We wanted to have some kind of automated end-to-end test coverage. But we did prioritize important features, right? Think like payments. It's very important for the buy and sell app to make sure that you can enter payment and process it. And we are porting all the failing Mabel, Selenium tests with slowly driving their number down so everything is green and is up to date. We do have a system where all the tests are tied to the common test rails in this case platform, because that's where the manual test runs are recorded, and you want your automation to provide information in the common system. So we wrote a plugin to make sure we update it from Cypress test. I want to finish with 3 common objections that you will hear if you try to improve testing at your company. The first thing is this feature or element or code change is only needed for your tests, right? You hear this a lot, your tests. And you can say, this feature is not for my test, it's for our confidence in our application. You're not changing something for my test to run. I don't care about the test. It's not my test, it's our company's application. A lot of people say, hey, if you need something, you do it yourself, right? I'm not going to take time out of my sprint to implement something, to improve things. You have to bypass that, right? You have to go all the way to the management. If you have buy-in from the management, they have to tell everyone, hey, make time on your sprint, because that will allow for better testing or for more reliable testing. And finally, if things stay on the backlog, if people say, yeah, I'll do it, just never got around it, and it's been months, and the thing is still flaky or untestable, you have to drive it down again. And this is a sneaky tactic, but schedule a regular meeting with some manager and the people who should be doing that particular item, so they report to them, not to you, not answer to you, but to the manager why it's still not done. So if we look at the effort we put into testing versus the confidence we get, we automated a lot. That means we cut down the manual effort, right? So right now we're kind of in the orange zone, and now we're trying to cover more features in our application to increase the coverage, which means increased confidence. We want to end up in the green zone. And in the future, we want to go all the way to the top left corner, which means we want to apply visual testing, so we will catch visual regression. We want to write accessibility tests, so we don't check accessibility or miss accessibility issues. We want to go from unit tests to component tests running in a real browser. We want to write API tests. Right now, we kind of drive everything through the web application, but we want to be able to make sure that we test the API separately, so we know if a bug happens, where it happens, in the UI or in the API. We do want to make sure that, like I said, every pull request to the API or microservices, that they go through full end-to-end test. Right now, this is hard, right? Because it's hard to say, make this web environment, but point at that particular pull request for this particular service. It requires infrastructure work. And finally, if you want to have confidence in your test, you want to make sure you know what you've tested. So we need to set up code coverage and then track down whatever is not covered by the test. All I'm trying to say, it requires time and effort. Do not expect a large organization to turn on a dime and start doing things your way, even if you're fully convinced that your way is preferred and is good for the company. You have to work with every department to convince them. Then you have to work on the solution to make sure there are no obstacles and blockers, and just keep applying the pressure. Thank you. You've been a great audience. I wish I were in Israel today, but I had to do this remotely. Take care.